This is Father Jude, and this lecture is about the story of creation. We start by reading through the text in Genesis chapter 1, and this is the first creation account because Genesis chapter 2 is the second creation account. So, as we read Genesis chapter 1, please take note of the highlighted and colored texts for our easy reference. So we read Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light to the earth, on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures, according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, which each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw it was good. Then God said, Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Okay, now as we read through the story of creation in Genesis chapter 1, we notice that there are words and phrases that are repeated, so that we will understand that the literary form used in Genesis chapter 1 is repetition. Repetition means that words or phrases are repeated to highlight the point towards the end. There is a noticeable change at the end of the repeated words or phrases, which would likely bring the point to the readers. Ang ibig sabihin, paulit-ulit ang mga salita o mga pangungusap, inuulit-ulit dahil merong bibigyang highlight, merong bibigyang halaga towards the end of the story. At mapapansin natin sa Genesis chapter 1, there is a noticeable change, merong biglang pagbabago. Kasi paulit-ulit ang mga salita, paulit-ulit ang mga pangungusap, at sa kahuli-hulihan, hindi na inulit. Ibig sabihin, na-highlight yung kahuli-hulihan at yun yung point ng kwento. So that the noticeable change at the end of the repeated words and phrases would likely bring the point of the story to the readers. So from Genesis chapter 1, we noticed again the repetitive words and phrases. Maraming mga inulit-ulit na mga salita, and we see the following words and phrases repeated in Genesis chapter 1. And God said, kung may 6 na araw na naglikha ang Diyos, meron ding 6 na beses na sinabi ang mga salitang ito. And God said, let there be. Paulit-ulit din ang let there be, and there was. Also, paulit-ulit din ang God saw that it was good. At inulit din ng ilang beses, and there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And then, paulit-ulit yon, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, hanggang sixth day. As I said, the literary form repetition will bring about the point of the story towards the end of the repetitive words and phrases. Pagkatapos ng maraming paulit-ulit na mga salita at mga pangungusap, sa kahuli-hulihan, merong point na gustong i-drive out ang kwento. In this case, sa Genesis chapter 1, because we are talking about the creation story, how God created everything, paulit-ulit ang mga salita at mga pangungusap hanggang ika-6 na araw. And now we are excited, nako, ano kaya ang kahuli-hulihan? Ano kaya ang ending ng mga repetition na ito? Ano kaya ang noticeable change na makikita natin na magda-drive out ng point ng kwento? So ano ba ang point ng kwento? Ano ba yung change na makikita natin after 6 days of God creating? So God created everything in 6 days at paulit-ulit itong dinidescribe ng Genesis chapter 1. Sa kahuli-hulihan, ano kaya ang ating ini-expect? Okay? There is a big difference after the 6th repetition. Ano yung big difference? There is no more repetition of, and God said, let there be. Wala nang inulit, and there was. Wala nang, hindi na inulit ang mga salitang ito. Instead of saying, let there be light, or let there be, and there was, instead of saying that, God said, let us make man in our image and likeness. Never did God say, let us make birds in our image and likeness. Never did God say, let us make the sun or the moon, the stars, the trees, the flowers. Never did God say, let us make them in our image and likeness. It is only towards the end of the story, after the 6th day of repetition, paulit-ulit na mga salita at mga pangungusap at pagkatapos ng ika-6 na pag-uulit, merong big difference. Instead of saying, let there be and there was, God actually said, let us make man in our image and likeness. Kaya sinabi ko kanina, the point of the story is not actually in the beginning of the story. The point of the story is after a series of repetition, merong mangyayari na kakaiba at yun yung point ng buong kwento ng pag-uulit. So, no more repetition. God saw that it was good. Wala nang inulit, and God saw that it was good. Instead, God saw everything He had created, and He said, very good. So, ano nga ba ang point ng story? Okay? So, towards the end, God rested on the 7th day. God must be very contented already. Kumbaga, masaya na ang Diyos sa kanyang nakita sapagkat when He created the human person, kontentong-kontento na siya, happy-happy na siya, kaya nag-rest na siya on the 7th day. God must be very contented with His creation after He made man in His image and likeness. So that the point of the story, the point of the repetitive words and phrases is this: the importance of the human person. Again, never did God say, very good, when He created the earth or when He created the sky. Never did God say, very good, when He created the mountains, the vegetation, etc., etc. It was only when He created the human person that He said, everything He had created is very good. Parang sinasabi ng Diyos, oh ayan, perfect na ang aking ginawa. Kaya pwede na tayong magpahinga. Parang nai-imagine ko ang Diyos na merong ginagawa, may ginagawang project. At habang ginagawa niya yung project, hindi pa siya kontento hanggang natapos niya yung kanyang project and sinabi niya, very good, eto na, perfect na ito. Pwede na tayong magpahinga dahil tapos na. Meron na, kumbaga may nanalo na, perfect na ang ating ginawa, nandyan na yung human person. So, not only was man created in the image and likeness of God. So, again, manotice natin ito after 6 days of repetition, okay, we will notice that God did not only create man in His image and likeness, man was also given the authority over all creatures. Hindi niya ito sinabi sa mga hayop, hindi niya ito sinabi sa mga puno, hindi niya sinabi sa mga ibon, hindi niya sinabi sa mga bundok. Sinabi lang ng Diyos ito towards the end of the story when He created the human person. Okay? When He created the human person, not only that God created man in His image and likeness, He also gave man authority over everything, over all other creatures. And we see that in verse 26 of chapter 1 of the book of Genesis. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So, God gave authority to the human person. God gave the authority over everything to man. And not only that, God also blessed the man. Man was also blessed by God to be fruitful, go and multiply. Okay? At magandang maalala natin, sinabi din ng Diyos, parang rule and subdue it. Okay? Multiply, no? Multiply and subdue, in a sense, the world. So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground." So, we see that, again, not only that God gave man, created man in His image and likeness, hindi lang yun, binigyan pa siya ng authority ng Diyos over everything, over all creatures. And not only that, God also gave them everything for food. God gave them sustenance. In verse 29, "Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food." By the seventh day, God had finished the work He had been doing. So on the seventh day, He rested from all His work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it He rested from all the work of creating that He had done. So, what is the point of this story? What is the point of repeating the words and phrases? Ano kaya ang nasa isip ng mga authors nung ginagawa nila ito, ng mga writers? Ano kaya ang kanilang iniisip? Ano ba ang point nitong ating kwento? Ang point ng kwento ng Genesis chapter 1 is the importance of the human person compared to the rest of creation. In creation, according to Genesis 1:26, in creation, man holds a special place because God created man, in His own image and in His likeness, so that man is actually the center of God's creation. God creates the whole world for man to support man in life and reveals Himself through His handiwork. Again, what is the point of the story of creation in Genesis chapter 1? That man is very important. You are very important. You are created in His image and likeness. And not only that, you were given the authority over everything. And you were given sustenance. You were given food to sustain your life, to sustain yourself. So all of us, we are important. This is the point of the story. The question for our reflection is this: do we give importance to one another? Nakita natin, we have seen how we are so important to God. Kaya nga, perfect na lahat when He created us. Okay? So we must be very important in the eyes of God. But the question is, are we important to one another? Or do we give importance to one another? Okay? So that is the first point that we can drive out from Genesis chapter 1. Okay, so there is repetition of words and phrases, and the point of the repetitive words, the point is that man is very important. And for our reflection, we ask, if we are so important to God, do we give importance to ourselves? Or do we give importance to one another? Now, there is a second observation in Genesis chapter 1, no? Not only that there are repetitive words or phrases, there is also another observation, okay, in Genesis chapter 1. And the literary form parallelism is obvious in Genesis chapter 1. So yung nauna kanina, okay, the literary form is repetition. Paulit-ulit na mga salita, paulit-ulit na mga pangungusap. And the second observation that I would like to present to you is the literary form parallelism. Okay? So ano ibig sabihin ng parallelism? Parallel, okay, parallel paano ba sabihin ang nag-parallel? Parang nagko-complement, no? Nagko-complement ang bawat isa, ang isa sa isa. Nagko-complement, for example, ang first day sa third day, second day to fourth day, and so on and so forth. So, parallelism, parallel sila, magkapareho, magkapantay, o nagtutugma silang dalawa. Now, we will understand parallelism if we present the first day up until the sixth day in this manner. So, I want all of you to take notice, itong mga circles na ito represents the first day, okay, here we are, and on the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, and then the sixth day. So, in Genesis chapter 1, we read that God created in 6 days, and on the seventh day, He rested. So, if you look at this presentation, the first circle is first day. God created light, and it is parallel to the third day or the fourth day. Okay, God created light on the first day, and then on the fourth day, okay, sa ikaapat na araw, nilikha ng Diyos ang araw, ang maliliit na mga bituin, ang mga buwan. Okay? So, ganun din sa second day, God created the firmament, the vault of the sky and the vault of the sea, no? So, merong itaas, merong ibaba. And on the fifth day, God created lahat ng mga creatures sa itaas at ganun din mga creatures sa baba. And then, on the third day, God created vegetation to prepare for the land animals and the human person. So, in detail, we will look into each of these circles. Lahat ng mga circles na ito, i-explain natin sa next na mga slides. So, the first day, so God created light on the first day. Okay? And it is parallel, okay, magkatugma doon sa ikaapat na araw, fourth day, where God created the greater light and the lesser light. So first day, God created light, and yung detalye nasa fourth day, where God created big light, greater light, and the lesser light. Okay? Ganun din, the second day is parallel to the fifth day. Ano ba ang nilikha ng Diyos sa second day? God created a firmament or a vault that separates water from the sky. Parang merong linya dito sa gitna, no? Sa ilalim ay vault na water, sa ibaba ay vault na sky. And parallel, tumugma doon sa fifth day, when God created flying creatures. Ibig sabihin, God prepared the upper vault for the flying creatures, and God on the second day prepared the vault, the vault of the water, so that on the fifth day God created all the swimming creatures. Kaya makikita natin parang tumutugma. Okay, kaya parallelism kasi tumutugma sila sa bawat isa. And on the third day, God created land and vegetation. Kasi on the sixth day, nagparallel, tumugma. Bakit nilikha ang vegetation? Bakit nilikha ang land? Because God created land animals and the human person. So parang God is kind of preparing everything, and in preparing everything to be filled on a particular day. So, we look at the circles again. Parang dito sa taas ng mga circles, pinaghandaan ng Diyos. Pinaghandaan ng Diyos ang lahat ng mga bagay-bagay para merong lugar ang mga bagay-bagay when He created these things in the circles below. So again, sabi ko nga, tumugma. God prepared everything on the first day. Mayroong light. Mayroong malaking light, or God created light. Lumiwanag. And on the fourth day, God created greater lights, or greater light, which is the sun, and also the lesser light, the moon and the stars. Now, ganun din on the second day, pinaghandaan din ng Diyos. God prepared the upper vault and the lower vault. Kasi on the fifth day, God will create, as it were, creatures of the sky above the vault, or the vault above, and the vault below. He created all the sea creatures. And finally, the third day, pinaghandaan din ng Diyos. Hinanda ng Diyos ang lupa, land, and vegetation kasi in preparation for His final creative day when He created everything, land animals, and the human person. So napakagandang makita, God prepares everything to be filled on a particular day. Pero nakita na naman natin ang tao na naman. Okay? God created everything, He prepared everything in a sense for the human person to come on the last day. Alright? So that, what is the point of this literary form? Okay? Katulad nung una, repetition, halos pareho lang ang point. The point being that man is very important to God. Okay? Kasi nga, napaka-importante ng tao kasi nilikha ng Diyos ang lahat-lahat ng ito, preparasyon para sa darating na human person. So that God created everything, He prepared everything, and filled it, in a sense, finally, with the human person. So man must be very important to God. God delicately prepared everything for the human person. So that the human person, he or she must be very important to God. So God delicately prepared everything before He created the human person. Nilikha ng Diyos lahat-lahat bago niya nilikha finally ang tao. In other words, God has thought of everything necessary for the survival of man. Kaya ano ang point nito? Inisip na ng Diyos na ikaw ay mabuhay. Inisip na ng Diyos ang lahat-lahat para sa iyo bago ka pa niya nilikha. Ibig sabihin, pinag-isipan, pinagplanuhan ka ng maigi ng Diyos. So God did not make man unless everything was perfect for man to live. Man is very important because God provided everything first before making man come to existence. So what can we get from Genesis 1? Okay? Meaning Genesis 1 only, no? Genesis 1, meaning our reflection on the two literary forms. Ano makukuha natin? You are very different from the rest of creation because you are deemed to be very good. You must be very important to God. Magandang mag-reflect. No, this is not an assignment. Magandang mag-reflect. Reflect on your own goodness. Reflect on your own giftedness. You are very good. God created you to be very good. Good question for us. For you, are you still very good until today? So, you are very important compared to the rest of creation because God thought of your existence and sustenance before finally making you. Do you always keep God in your thoughts? Itong reflection na ito, magandang magtanong. Ang Diyos, inisip ka na ng Diyos at patuloy kang iniisip ng Diyos. Ang tanong para sa iyo, iniisip mo rin ba ang Diyos? Do you always keep God in your thoughts? Or at least, napasalamatan mo ba ang Diyos? Have you thanked God enough for having thought of you so lovingly? Now, what can we get from this reflection? Or what can we get from this presentation? We will understand, looking at Genesis chapter 1, looking at the two literary forms, the repetition and parallelism, what can we get? We will understand, we will realize that the dignity of the human person is rooted, as it were, in his being created in the image and likeness of God. May dignidad ang tao at ang kanyang dignidad ay nakaugat sa kanyang pagiging nilikha ng Diyos sa kanyang image and likeness. No? So, napakagandang makita ang aking dignidad ay nakabase sa katotohanan na ako ay imahe ng Diyos. Kaya nga itong box na ito on this side, mirror, mirror on the wall, do you see Christ in me at all? Do you see God in me at all? Kung ang aking dignidad ay nakaugat sa aking pagiging imahe ng Diyos, okay, ang aking pagiging imahe ng Diyos, nakikita ba ninyo? Do I still mirror God's image in me? And what do we mean by created in the image and likeness of God? We mean we have a semblance of God. No, we have a semblance of God. We project God, or we are supposed to project God. We mirror God. We are made in the image and likeness of God. Do we mirror God today? Now, looking at your words and actions, can others see God in your words and actions? Can you yourself see Christ in you? Can you see Christ in your life? Okay? So, again, what can we get from our study of creation account, or the first creation account? We are the images of God. We are created in His image and likeness, so we are God's images. Do you mirror Christ in everything? Do you mirror Christ in your family? Do you mirror God in your work? Do you mirror God in your communities? So there you go. That is Genesis chapter 1. And as a review, we say that in Genesis chapter 1, there are two literary forms used by the authors. Number 1, we have repetition. Second, we have parallelism. Repetition because there are words and phrases that are repeated in this story of creation, and we notice that after, or the point of repeating the words and phrases, the point is that we see and understand the whole point of the story. The message of the story is towards the end of the repetitive words and phrases. And we have seen after the repetitions, 6 days of repetitive words and phrases, we have seen how important the human person is to God, because God created the human person in His own image and likeness, and that God gave him authority over all His creatures, and that God gave food, God gave sustenance to man. And the second literary form that we have studied is parallelism. God created everything on a particular day, and that particular day parallels to another day when God created things. So that God in 3 days in 3 days God prepared everything, and the rest of the 3 days He filled, as it were, everything that He prepared. Ibig sabihin, on the first day He created light, He filled it with greater and lesser lights. The second day He created 2 vaults above and vault below. Okay? And on the 5th day He filled it with creatures above and creatures below. And then finally, okay, the 3rd day parallels to the 6th day. God created vegetation, land, because He already thought of creating man on the last day. So again, what can we see from Genesis chapter 1? We can see and understand that God thought of man. He created man in His image and likeness, so man must be very important to God. Man has a special place in the mind, in the heart of God. And that is a very important reflection for us. We should be reflecting and thanking God because God thought of us. For God, we are very important. Thank you for listening. I hope this video helps us understand who we are and how important we are for God. Thank you very much. God bless you all.